fresh look at pandemic origins points straight to food market in Wuhan, scientists say. CNN, a fresh look at the possible origins of the COVID-19 pandemic points straight back to the Huanan seafood market in the Chinese city of Wuhan. A scientist who had been studying the pandemic from the beginning asserted Thursday. The researcher Michael Worobe of the University of Arizona has put together a painstaking timeline of all the known cases of SARS-CoV-2 before it was known the pandemic was starting. He found many were in people who lived or worked near the market, the original suspected source of the pandemic, even if they didn't have direct links to the market. But as the Chinese government officials sought to deflect blame, and as the Trump administration and later intelligence officials in the Biden administration pointed to the possibility of the virology research lab in Wuhan, the picture has become muddled. Worobe, who specialized in tracing the genetic evolution of viruses, has found considerable evidence that the virus arose in an animal and did not start circulating until the end of 2019. He has published multiple studies on the probable origins of the virus, but he said he wanted to check his own theories against the real life evidence from what was known about actually people with documented infections. So he dove into the known cases. He says what he found strengthened the theory that the virus originated in the animals sold in the market, much like the first SARS outbreak in 2002 to 2004 that infected 8,000 people before it was stopped. One case especially stood out, that of the 41-year-old accountant who allegedly got sick on December 8, 2019, and who had no connection to the market. The case has been cited as the evidence the pandemic must not have started at the market. Worobe found records that showed the man didn't become ill with COVID-19 until later in December, and that his December 8th problem was related to his teeth. This is corroborated by hospital record and scientific paper that report his COVID-19 onset date as 16th December and the date of hospitalization as 22 December. Worobe wrote in a commentary in the journal Science. That would make the seafood vendor who worked at the market and got sick December 11th, 2019, the oldest documented case, Worobe said. Other research helped Worobe come up with a map of the oldest cases that clusters them all around the market. That's so many of the more than 100 COVID-19 cases from December with no identified epidemiologic link to Huanan market nonetheless lived in its direct vicinity is notable and provides the compelling evidence that the community transmission started at the market, he wrote. Big red flashing arrow. It tells us that there is a big red flashing arrow pointing at Huanan market as the most likely place that the pandemic started, Worobe told CNN. The virus didn't come from some other part of the Wuhan and then got the Huanan market. The evidence speaks really quite strongly to the virus starting at the market and then leaking into the neighborhoods around the market. The World Health Organization made its own investigation into the origins of the pandemic and said animals were the most likely origin of the pandemic. But WHO also said its conclusions were not definite and asked the Chinese government to provide more information and access. This information might not ever come to light, Warbeck said. The Chinese government cleared the Huanan market of all animals and disinfected it when it became clear it was associated with the outbreak of infectious disease in January of 2020, removing the risk of more spread, but also destroying crucial evidence. I wouldn't call this conclusive evidence, but I would call this pretty darn strong evidence, Warbeck said. The journal Science subjected Warbeck's research to outside scrutiny before publishing it, and Peter Daschak, president of Eco Health Alliance and one of the WHO's investigators, said he thinks it holds up. I was really impressed with the detective work he's put in. Everything he says about the December 8th case fits with what we experienced in Wuhan on the WHO trip. They were a cluster of early cases coming into hospitals in late December, and the clinicians worked back to the presumed date of onset. That's Jack told CNN by email. They just made a mistake with this person because he likely visited the hospital for another reason. This puts the first known case as the Huanan market workers, not the accountant who lived near one of the Wuhan lab campuses. That's Jack added. This is now adding to around 10 pieces of other scientific evidence that I have seen since the end of our WHO works, all of which point towards an origin through the wildlife, farms, and market. No single piece of the evidence is totally conclusive, but when you lay them all out, it really tips the balance towards the natural origin. Warbeck joined the group of scientists who signed a letter in Science in May saying the theory that the coronavirus leaked from the lab needs thorough investigation. I co-signed that the letter in Science suggesting that the lab leak needs to be investigated, which I still believe and that it should be, Warbeck told CNN. But in the meantime, holy smokes, is there a lot of evidence against it and in favor of natural origin.